Alright guys, the recent updates we have got in Asphalt Legends Unite got me thinking. First we got the Mayhem event, which was arguably one of the best special events I have ever seen in this game in a while. Then we got the Gauntlet mode and the Club Clash got removed, which I am sorry but I can only see that as a positive change as well. And recently they released a startup event for the McLaren 570S, which might not mean a ton for some of you guys, but for the true OGs, you will definitely know what happened during the British Tour season. Now we recently got a new special event format called the Spotlight, where you can get plenty of rewards just for playing the game without having to pay basically anything. So what if all those changes weren't coincidental? What if Gameloft is playing the right cards to make Asphalt Legends Unite a better game than it has ever been? The Asphalt Legends Unite release was a bit bumpy to say the least. The transition from Asphalt 9 Legends to Asphalt Legends Unite could have been smoother, but I still have to say that being patient back then paid off, since most of the urgent issues got addressed on the months that follow. Since then there have been some ups and downs, but it's safe to say that very few games have a perfect run through the years. After all, Asphalt 9 Legends, or Asphalt Legends Unite as we have been calling it for the last few years, it's on the path of becoming a 7-year-old game this year. Some people thought that there would be an Asphalt 10 or something similar, while the removal of any numbers from the name of Asphalt Legends Unite certainly suggests that this game is here to stay for many more years, to basically become the final version of the Asphalt saga in terms of both graphics and progression. The truth is that there are many challenges ahead and literally nothing forbids Gameloft from messing up things to a point where playing this game feels a bit like Asphalt 8 these days. But in case you want to have a look at the Asphalt 8 situation, I made a video about that game as someone who has been playing it for over 10 years and how it feels to play it these days. That's why the last thing I wish to see is Asphalt Legends Unite following that path at some point in the future. But I think now we are at a time where Gameloft will try to risk the least in regards to how much players like to play this game for a couple of fundamental reasons. The first one is the 25th Gameloft anniversary, which will be celebrated through the upcoming months and that Gameloft will use as some sort of celebration for surviving up to this day. Engaging with new players and those who have been here since the beginning is a more than understandable goal, and keeping the community somewhat satisfied is also vital for the second reason: collaborations. The ongoing collaboration with LEGO Technic might just be the largest collaboration ever introduced into the Asphalt saga since the Fall Out Boy update in Asphalt 8 Airborne, and I would even dare to risk and say that it's one of the most important collaborations in Gameloft history ever. Of course, second, if we consider the partnership Gameloft has with Disney in other games. Other famous collaborations like the ongoing Hyundai comeback to the Asphalt saga needs players to be interested in the game as well as the brand that it's collaborating, and that's why I think the introduction of harmful features for the community is extremely likely for the upcoming months. I mean, of course, it doesn't mean that there won't be any bad things coming to Asphalt Legends Unite or something like that. It's just that based on the roadmap they released early this year, it seems like throughout this year we will see nothing but quite decent changes and features making their way into the game. But hey, listen, that doesn't mean that everyone will get a bunch of free and excellent cards for free. I think it's obvious that just like the Drive Syndicate 11 we got, some events might be easier to complete for those that have been playing for a while this game, but it won't necessarily mean that everyone will be able to complete the entire event completely for free. Because if we have a look at the requirements of this Drive Syndicate 11, in the past, for example, many people got the Bugatti LBN from a Burst of Speed that came not once but twice to the game, and as a result of that, now that the Bugatti LBN was required for this Drive Syndicate, many of those free-to-play players will have the chance to unlock the SCC Tuatara Striker, which is the main Drive Syndicate car, completely for free. This exact same situation where you need an old card in order to complete a new event and which will be free for many old players will likely happen with many more events in the future, but it won't be because Gameloft hates those who started playing the game the same day an event took place, but instead to somewhat compensate those players that have been playing Asphalt Legends Unite for a bit longer. There will be other ways to help newcomers as usual, since they are doing a quite strong job trying to help newcomers to catch up with the rest of the player base, but in the grand scheme of things, those who have been sticking to the game for a while will realize how their effort will be more rewarded than usual. Alright, so if we focus on the new Spotlight special event format, things get better pretty much regardless of how good or bad your garage is. You know, I have been traveling while this event arrived for the first time to the game, so despite I wanted to make a video around a week ago, I literally couldn't. So now I definitely think it's the right moment to tell you all my thoughts about it. The Easter Eggstravaganza special event is a new kind of a special event introduced on the last update where you have to grab eggs racing through a map and meet a certain amount of conditions in order to receive packs every time you complete a race. Those packs will give you a random amount of Spotlight coins, which you can use to buy blueprints and epic import parts from the Spotlight shop. And I have to admit that, albeit it takes a certain grind in order to get a proper amount of blueprints and epic import parts, in general this event is extremely helpful for all kind of players, since you can upgrade a few quite interesting cards, basically for free. And I personally have to admit that this is the most surprise in a good way that gameloft has got me so far, because if you count all the other actually decent or straight up great things that they have added within a couple of updates, it's really hard to not to fall into the hope that Asphalt Legends Unite might just follow up this trend and become consistently better in the future. I don't know about you guys, but you know me and I tend to be quite conservative in regards to my expectations about future updates and that stuff in Asphalt Legends Unite, albeit this time I have to acknowledge that Asphalt Legends Unite future looks promising if gameloft follows up this way of making the game more enjoyable, not insanely grindy, and also easier for newcomers to progress on. But you know, only time will tell. I am well aware that in the past I have made several videos pointing out the errors that were taking a toll on this game's potential success. Well, it seems like some things have changed since then, and that implies a much brighter future for Asphalt Legends Unite. As stupid as it might sound, the only thing I hope is that the game profits whole despite of how good these events are for the free-to-play players, because if money keeps flowing in the same way it used to, or the total earnings increase, this might drive gameloft to maintain the current way of doing things, which is the best thing for everyone. I mean, I buy all the passes and some extra things from time to time, but all I hope is that on the general context, earnings either increase or, you know, just remain the same. But now it's your turn, guys. How do you feel about all the great events we have got recently? Do you think that gameloft is trying to make the game better in the long run, or is all of this a strategy to keep players engaged through the 25th anniversary celebrations? Make sure to let me know in the comment section, drop your massive like and subscribe in order to not to miss absolutely anything about Asphalt Legends Unite. And I will see you really soon, as usual, with much more content. Goodbye, guys.